how much do I need? How much do I want? And how much do I want to save?
Okay, I have one irrational fear.
Oh, God.
You only have one? Because I'm here all morning. The more confident you can be in how you're running your business, the less you're going to want to keep up with other people because you're confident in your own space.
All I'm hearing is like the Charlie Brown teacher,
Wah, 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 wah.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to Hustle Humbly. It's Alyssa and Katie, and we are two top producing realtors in the Baton Rouge market.
We work for two different companies where we should be competitors, but we have chosen community over competition.
The goal of our podcast is to encourage you to find your own way in business.
So stop comparing yourself and start embracing your strengths.
Hi. No, start again.
Hi, how are you guys?
Start again. Hi. Hi, Alyssa.
Katie?
Hi, Sarah. She's like frozen in time.
Hi, Katie and Alyssa.
Hi, everybody. It's episode 141.
We're all here.
Becker's going to talk money.
Yay! I can't wait.
I love to talk and I love
Good.
money.
You've come to the
Me
right place.
too.
You guys are made for each other.
We are.
I, on the other hand, have things to learn. So,
I know.
I have things to learn too.
okay. Sarah,
I don't know if we talk about crypto,
or an
Katie, it's all
NFT,
you.
but we're not going to go down that road. Okay. So, Sarah, please tell
No.
our audience who you are, what you do, all the important things before we get started.
Absolutely. So my name is Sarah Becker. I am a financial educator for freelancers, real estate agents, creative entrepreneurs, basically anyone that has fluctuating income. Whether you provide a service or a product, I'm here for you. I have been in the entrepreneurial space for like 13, 14 years now. As a wedding photographer, as a real estate investor. I also co-owned an elopement planning company for a little bit with one of my closest friends. And I've learned a lot about how businesses are run on the back end financially. And I've casually been chatting about money with all of my friends for years and years, and they got sick and tired of me. So I decided to turn it into a
Makes
business.
sense. You even, I'll follow that up with, you have done our branding photos for the podcast. And on one occasion, we
Yes.
went to dinner afterwards, and you did give us some really interesting information about retirement. You love to talk money. Like, that's really, you can see that it is your passion. So I'm excited. It is
truly my
I'm so
passion.
excited for you to bring this information to our audience because realtors really don't think about money as much as they should, and dealing with the fluctuating income is really, really tricky. So I think this is super useful. Okay.
Good,
So
good.
we're going to get really, really like in there today, but maybe can you give us like a quick like bit about your philosophy, about your investment in real estate and how that plays into, I know you're very retirement focused. So tell us, I didn't even know what FIRE was until you said it to me. So tell us what FIRE is and like, tell us a little bit about all of that.
Okay, I feel like you just asked me six questions in a row, and that's my style. So I appreciate that. I also do that. So it's karma, you know? Okay, so a little bit about my philosophy. The most important thing I want to mention before we get started is that I find so many real estate agents are not confident when it comes to money. They're like, I'm not numbers people. I'm a people person. Like, that's why I'm in real estate. But the problem is, as a real estate agent, you basically work for yourself, right? There's no HR department being like, sign here for your 401k. Like, you've got to figure this stuff out on your own. And I think my biggest message I want people to know is that you can do it. Like, sometimes you need a little bit of help. And that's why I started this business, but it is absolutely doable. Like, as Marie Forleo says, everything is figure outable. Like, you can definitely figure it out. And so that is my biggest point I want to make before going into this, because I know that when it comes to finances, there are a lot of like acronyms, and it feels scary because there's so much wrapped up in like how you spent your money and childhood wounds and shame, and it's very convoluted. So I think the biggest thing to remember is that like, you can do this. You run your own business. You can figure out your money.
We need that.
That's number one.
We really need that.
You're welcome. Number two, yes, I am pretty retirement focused, but what I really am is freedom focused. Like, a lot of people talk about, when they think retirement, they're like, when I'm 65. But no, I mean, my husband's retired. He retired in his early 30s. Like, he's still working, but he wouldn't necessarily have to. That's because of the FIRE movement. We can get into that in a minute. But I think my whole point with retirement and how my real estate investments have come into play is that I don't want to wait till I'm 60 to take the summers off and spend them with my kid. Like, I want to do that now. at 31. So that is kind of where a lot of my retirement philosophy is. It's bringing the retirement to you quite a bit sooner.
I really like how you said that a lot of people aren't confident, because I'm just coming out of filing my taxes. And every year there is a confusion between the Roth IRA, the SEP IRA, the contributions, Tanner's, mine. I never know how to answer any of their questions. And my guy, he's speaking to me, and I'm like, all I'm hearing is like the Charlie Brown teacher, like, wah, wah, wah. And I'm like, I have an MBA and I do not understand what you're saying. No matter how many times you say it, I cannot understand. And it makes me feel so inadequate, not confident. Like, I can invest in real estate and feel good and safe because I understand it. I do not understand the other stuff, and I have yet to find someone that can make me feel comfortable with understanding it. You know, it's crazy.
Yes, Alyssa, absolutely. And there's an education gap, right? Like, we don't know this because we're not taught this. And I think a lot of people think I should know this. Well, who's supposed to tell you? Like, we have an education issue.
Also, we have an education issue specifically female based. No one talks to women about money. And you're talking about creative entrepreneurs and
don't get me started.
Real estate agents. These are all predominantly female fields. So no one.
They're women. Oh, yeah.
Right.
I only work with
women. This is how you handle your money, and you need to be in charge of your money, and you don't just turn all that over. Like, you know what it makes me think about? I always freak out. I handle the bills, and I make the money, and I know what's going on. But then I think about it in terms of, like, the other way around. If I was giving that over to my partner and then they passed away, and then I wouldn't even know, like, what was what. That's what freaks me out. And we should all want to know, at least know what's going on, so that we could step in an emergency, or if something, were to happen. You need to know. You can't just be like, here, you do it. I don't want to learn. I don't want to handle this.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that happens so often.
Okay. So tell us, FIRE. Will you explain it to the people? Tell us what it means.
I will explain it to the people. So I'm so curious if your audience is familiar with this. Like, guys, DM me about this once you hear this podcast, because I want to know, because I think FIRE is honestly really applicable to real estate agents. So FIRE stands for financially independent, retired early. And this is not a scientific percentage, but I think a large percentage of people reach FIRE due to real estate investing. That's how my partner Barry did it. I mean, that is like really the easiest way to do it, is to purchase properties that you then rent them out. You get the cash flow. You purchase another property. You keep it going. That's how a lot of people are able to retire early or reach freedom early. And so I think it's common among real estate agents, or it should be. Like, you should be thinking about it, because obviously you're seeing those deals before anyone else is. You're in a very unique position to advocate for yourself in the real estate space when a lot of people don't have that advantage.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your real estate investments, like what your portfolio entails.
Yes. Okay. Great question. So I co-own a commercial space here in New Orleans that is a guest house. That's the only commercial space I own. And then my partner and I together, we own 4 residential properties. We own one in Vermont, one in Mississippi, and we have only 2 left here in New Orleans.
Are they like vacation rentals?
Sorry.
So for...
No, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. So our two New Orleans houses, they're both double shotguns, which for non-Louisiana people listening, it's basically a duplex. And so we live in one of those units, and then we have 3 that are rented to long-term renters. Our house in Mississippi is one that I've talked about on my blog. We bought it for $65,000 last year. It sits on 4 acres on the Leaf River, and we are still renovating that house. And it is a place that I go probably about a third of the time I'm up there. So we have not rented it. I'm open to doing that in the future, but like, we need to renovate the bathroom first, which we have not done, So we're kind of doing that piece by piece. And then the Vermont house we bought last September, and we've rented it out for the winter, and we are going to go spend the summer up there. So it's really great because a lot of people ski in Vermont, and so we were able to rent it out to a couple that loves to ski. They're hanging out up there in the snow, dealing with all the cold stuff I don't want to deal with, and then I'll come up for what I consider to be the best parts, and then we'll rent it out.
How
again.
did y'all choose Vermont?
That's a great question. So my stepson, has some family in New England. So we were kind of considering like, oh, it'd be great to be able to spend some summers up there. My partner Barry also has some really close friends up in New England and has some ties up there. And we really wanted to, after over a decade in New Orleans, spend most of hurricane season somewhere else. So we were looking for a different type of weather, So last summer we did a little New England road trip, and originally we were kind of thinking Massachusetts or Connecticut. And we went to Vermont kind of as like a break from house hunting. And when we got up there, I was like, this is so amazing. And if we're not going to be up here for winter anyway, like obviously the winters are, worse in Vermont than Massachusetts, but coming from Louisiana, I was like, it's all going to be hard for me. Like I don't have the right clothes for any of this. And we completely fell in love with Vermont. We contacted a real estate agent up there and kind of got on a mailing list it was like, honestly, we found that house. It's so funny because we found the Mississippi house on Facebook Marketplace. And then we found the Vermont house on this like very random website called cabinhomes.net that would send you an email anytime anything like under a cabin in a certain area would be listed. And that's how we found our
Vermont
that
house. You glazed over that you bought the Mississippi house on Facebook Marketplace. You bought it on Facebook Marketplace sight unseen. So for our real estate audience, please tell us a little more about this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. How did you know you were
Okay, so first of all, guys. Yes. Okay. So I would never recommend someone purchase their first house this way. I don't want people to think that I am like, inspections, don't need them. You do. You normally do. But this house, when it came up, it was on Facebook Marketplace. We actually did go see it. We were able to drive the couple hours north to go see it. And because my partner Barry has renovated so many houses on his own, he was able to basically kind of do his own inspection. He went under the house. There was a big crawl space. And also the house was listed for about half of what it appraised for. So I was like, if we buy this house and the AC doesn't work, we can replace it. If we buy this house and the roof needs to be replaced, we can replace it. So because of the price point and our experience in renovating, we were able to confidently purchase this house. But I mean, we saw it and we closed 8 days later and we never met the owners. Like it was I had a real estate attorney look over everything because again, there were a lot of, not red flags, orange flags. But fortunately it was all good. And once we bought the house, I was like, do we really own this house?
Right.
But we do. So it all worked out.
I'm so glad for you.
That's amazing. And you've been renovating it like as you stay there. Okay. All right, let's back up to the retirement plans where Alyssa was confused and doesn't know what's what, and neither do I. Can you tell us the difference between SEP and IRA and what that means and kind of what is the starter? Like, let's just say we're talking to people who've never done anything. What would you do?
Absolutely. So an Roth IRA is personal, right? It literally stands for an independent retirement account, whereas a SEP, since it's associated with your business, it allows you to contribute more. So with a SEP, you can contribute 25% of your profit versus an IRA where you can contribute $6,000, and that comes from your personal side, right? Because the law sees you as two entities, your business and you as a person. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at retirement accounts, because again, some retirement accounts like an IRA, it's only the personal side. Some accounts like a SEP, it's the business side. Some accounts combine, like for instance, I have an independent 401k, an I-401k, and I can contribute, $18,000 on the personal side and then up to 25% of my profit on the business side. So having an account like that allows me to maximize my contribution since I can.
Okay.
Yes.
My
Alyssa.
question is, what if some realtors are just working, they didn't incorporate themselves or set up I am incorporated, so I legally have Alyssa Jenkins Inc. and that is like my business income. Mm-hmm. So I do have a SEP IRA because I was told to. Now I understand why. Mm-hmm. But what if you didn't incorporate yourself or you were just working? Can you still have a SEP?
Yeah. So if you're unincorporated.
Okay.
No. So you can have a personal account. You could have an IRA, an independent retirement account, but you would not qualify for a SEP and you would not qualify for a 401k. I would highly recommend getting incorporated, getting an EIN. An EIN is free. Becoming an LLC is normally a few $100s and then like $50 a year is maintenance to file every year. So I would highly recommend that because it really opens up your opportunities for savings
while we're on
accounts
LLC.
and for retirement accounts.
So if you have an LLC but you are not doing the S Corp election, can you use the SEP or do you have to take it the next step and do? yes, you can use it.
Mm-mm. Yes. So an LLC is a type of business entity, while an S corp is
it's like
your tax classification. So if you classify yourself as an S corp, you're still also an LLC. You're just an LLC with an S corp classification. And really what the difference is that if you're an S corp, it means you're doing your taxes at a different rate and you're paying yourself through a payroll service that takes taxes out, therefore making them deductible off your income.
Right. So my CPA recommended that I do the S corp election, and then I pay myself a salary. And I think what they normally tell you is the reasoning for that is to avoid really high payroll taxes if you don't take it to the S corp and give yourself a salary. So let's just say I made $100,000, but my salary is only $50,000. Then I pay the payroll taxes on the $50,000. Whereas if I was just the LLC and I took all the money as mine and I didn't say what was a salary, then I had to pay the payroll taxes on the full $100,000. Am I getting that right? I think that's how it is.
Yes. Another thing that is different is that when you pay yourself a salary versus just being an LLC. So let's say, Katie, your salary is $50,000. You're going to have to pay, that 7.5%, FICA tax, and so is your business. But because your business can pay half of it, if you elect as an S corp, you can write that off. Versus if you're an LLC, none of that is written off. So that's another little tax bump break situation. And there's different levels of thought and opinion on when do you become an S corp? When do you decide to elect yourself as that? If you're making over $70,000 of profit a year, I would say that's the time to start thinking about it.
Back tax season a year or two ago, we interviewed Karen Bond, who was a CPA. And she had almost the same kind of breakpoint too. Like, don't mess with this group. Don't get frustrated about it until you reach a certain income level. And then you kind of cross the threshold and you should really consider it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the reason for that is that when you file your taxes as an S corp, there is a lot more work. So it's going to cost you more money to file every year. And then you're going to have to pay a payroll service to actually write you your paycheck. So that's around the time you're starting to break even and then make, more money. As an S corp, if you're making less than $70,000 profit, not gross profit, I would not worry about it.
When you pay yourself, who withholds your taxes?
My CPA, actually, I don't use a payroll service. My CPA does all of my bookkeeping. So they put they take my bank statements, they put everything into QuickBooks, and then they do my payroll, and they basically send me an email that says, I just do it once a month. They're like, this is what your payroll is. It's the same every month. Put this money into this account, I have a payroll account, move the money from the payroll account to your personal account, and then leave the tax money in the payroll account, and they schedule that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine too. That's how mine is.
Look, I would never recommend someone who was uncomfortable with this to try and do it themselves.
Never.
It's worth the money. Never. I think I pay $250 a month for my CPA to do all of that, to do the payroll, to do my bookkeeping, and then I just have to pay them to do my taxes, but they've been keeping up with it all year, so it's not time consuming for them, and it doesn't cost me that much money to get my taxes done.
Oh my gosh, no, it's so valuable. And it's not just that you're paying for the task, you're literally paying for peace of mind. And when I have clients who are audited, if you have a CPA that has helped you, honestly, a lot of times the IRS will be like, okay, great, we don't even need to continue with this. But if you're on your own, the IRS is going to give it to you. And I always tell people it is so worth that money to have someone else signing off on your monthly stuff, someone else signing off just on your yearly taxes if you're not an S corp, hire it out.
Step one, I'm a new agent. This is hypothetical.
Thanks. Thanks for clarifying.
Alyssa, congratulations on your career change. Yeah.
They should start off before they're incorporated or anything like that with at least a Roth IRA.
Yes. So a Roth IRA is always the first step that I recommend. You are going to pay taxes on that money, which means all the growth is tax free. And so when you withdraw it later, you will not pay taxes on that growth. And the Roth max is out at $6,000 a year, and there is an income limit. So if you're making more than $140,000 a year, which for a new agent in your first year, if you're making more than that, congratulations. Then you can no longer contribute. And that's $215,000 for a couple. And that number kind of changes every year. It's one of those tax laws that is just like always waffling back and forth. But the $6,000 a year Roth IRA is absolutely where you should start. Like max that baby out. Let that compound interest just grow and grow for you.
6,000. Like I think I have one and Tanner has one. And then we each
absolutely you should each have one.
6,000. So 12,000.
You can each do 6. Mm-hmm.
Unless our combined income exceeds 215.
Correct. And that's net, right? That's not gross. That is net profit for you, as a small business owner. I know like Tanner has a normal job.
He has, right.
A W-2 job.
What does normal corporations usually provide? Is that a certain type of IRA? They're all different.
I mean, they're all different. There is no normal. I would say that the biggest difference you're going to see in between like independent and corporation is like your 401k match, because obviously when you're independent, there's no company matching for you. So I always say, so like Alyssa, if you were like, Sarah, what should I do? I would be like, absolutely max out that Roth IRA, but then look into Tanner's 401k. And if Tanner has any kind of match, make sure you are contributing, even if it lessens, his paycheck a good bit, contributing up to the max, because that's something that we as self-employed people will never get. And it's
because your employer is matching the money.
Okay. And so then you start off with your Roth IRA, and then you, like maybe year 2, 3, 4, you incorporate yourself and start your SEP IRA. And that is when it is, you said 25% of the profit of your business that you can contribute to that SEP. Okay.
Yes.
I think I have both of these.
And I really love, that's great. And I really love an I-401k. If you were going back and forth between a SEP and a 401k, I would do the 401k because you can contribute more, since you can contribute both from the personal and the business side.
A SEP and a 401k?
Yeah.
And remind me one more time what you contribute to a 401k.
So a 401k, you can contribute up to $18,000 as a person, and then your business can contribute up to 25% of your profit. So a lot of times I will wait to see exactly what my profit's going to be tax-wise, and then I'll throw, a little bit more money in my 401k once I figure out my tax liability is going to be each year.
Like it doesn't have to happen in the year that you're filing the taxes for. You can do that in the year when you're actually working them up. Okay.
For example,
yes.
I just got that's what I do. My CPA looks at my income and expenses for the year. And then she tells me, based on your profit, you can contribute this much to your SEP. And I'm like, okay.
Amazing.
And it would count, even though it's 2022, I can contribute now before a certain date, and it would count for 2021. And it was interesting because if I'll just tell you the numbers. So she was like, you can contribute $30,000 to your SEP. If you do that, what you owe in taxes, it was like $12,000 less. So really, 33 minus 12 it's not like I gave away all 33.
And you're giving it to yourself.
Yeah, I'm giving it to myself.
Giving it to someone else.
I feel like I'm not.
You're just saving it. Save it for later.
Yes, remember you're paying future Alyssa. Like that money is just going to your future.
I have one irrational fear.
Oh God, is it the auditing? She's really worried about the.
I love where this conversation is going. You only have one because I'm here all morning.
Like CPA,
okay.
I feel that fear is pretty much.
So what are we on now?
One day, if the government or something will it all just disappear? Will it go away? Like all this money? Because to me, my fear is that with real estate, even if the market plummeted, I still have a structure. I have trouble putting money into these accounts because it's a lot of money that could be buying me real estate. And then I witnessed my parents and grandparents being nervous, watching it fluctuate. And then if something terrible happens, by the time I'm 60, is this going to even be a thing?
Right. That is a very understandable fear. A lot of people have it, and I have so much to say about it. So the first thing is that when you are investing money in the stock market, it's obviously very different. Like you said, it's not tangible like real estate, but I just want to reiterate that diversification is super important. I mean, we've learned that in New Orleans, right? We've had floods. I mean, we had Hurricane Ida. I mean, my house was very damaged from that. You know, it's very important to diversify. Another thing I'll say about this is that this may not comfort you. But during the Great Depression, you know, when we had 1929, when we had a big stock market crash, the stock market didn't go down to zero, right? Like people talk about it like it did, but it actually didn't. And now that we've had some time moving past that, almost 100 years, you can see that if you put money in the stock market before that crash, you were still better off 50 years later than if you didn't have any money in it, because the market comes back, it grows, right? And then my third point I'll make is that if we had some kind of stock market collapse, it probably means we've had a societal collapse, and currency probably won't even be a thing.
You're going to start growing your home if this happens.
Right.
I have bigger problems.
Well, and I don't mean that to say that I think it's going to happen. I absolutely don't think that it will. But if it did, we would not care about retirement anymore. We would be like, do you have any seeds in the garage? Yeah, like we need to start planting potatoes.
Okay. Good. Makes me feel better.
Okay. All right. We're gonna move away now from retirement. This is pretty in depth, and people are gonna start to be like, whoa, I'm scared. But let's kind of back it up. Yeah.
People are skipping. Yeah, I get it.
Simpler part of budgeting when you don't know what your income is going to be. Like, how would you even budget for taxes or paying a CPA or paying your freaking bills? Like, how do you budget when you don't know what your income is going to be?
And do you have an app that you like?
And is there an app for that?
You're right. Okay. So I love an annual budget. Like when you have fluctuating income, budgeting monthly does not make any sense to me, right? Especially when so many of our expenses as self-employed people are annual. It doesn't make any sense to think about your money in an every 30-day cycle. So I'll say that number one. Number two, you always need to know, like I love to reverse engineer a budget. Instead of saying, I made $5,000 this month, how am I going to spend it? Look at your needs, look at your expenses, and see how much money you need to make first. And say, like, I need to make $4,000, or I need to make $8,000, or I make $2,000. You know, everyone's going to differ, which is why it's really important to know. I like to call this your enough number. And basically, your enough number is how much do I need, how much do I want, and how much do I want to save? And those three things together make up your enough number and can give you an idea of your annual budget. And then also, you know, in entrepreneurship, sometimes businesses fail. And one of the biggest problems in business failure is that people wait too long to call it. And if you know exactly how much money you need to make and you're not making it, you know that you either need to change something up in your business or you need to call it. And you're going to know that a lot faster and therefore get into a lot less debt if you can figure that out.
I like that
sooner.
Because I do think we see a lot of people hold on to real estate each year thinking next year will be better. Next year will be better.
Well, and I think it's tough too, though, because I don't know if this is the same like in photography, but in real estate, you have to build some momentum. So you couldn't just give it a year. Like you would have to give it 2 or 3 years. But after you pass the 3-year threshold and you've really been working at it the whole time, then I think you need to probably call it. But you can't call it at year 1 or year 2 because it does take some runway to really get it moving.
Absolutely. And I also think like there is nothing more motivating financially than knowing you're not making enough money. Yeah. Like you will hit the ground running. You will build that momentum. You will do that networking if you're not making enough. And if you don't know that you're not making enough, you're not going to be as motivated.
For sure. Okay. How do you make financial plans when you're working in a field that doesn't have consistent income? Like I understand the yearly budget. That makes total sense. But like as far as retirement or other like bigger money plans, like how do you make a financial plan when you don't know what's coming?
Yes, absolutely. So every year when you look at your annual budget, I love to make annual goals, but the most important thing is to prioritize those things. Like for instance, it's much more important to have an emergency fund than a fully funded IRA, right? So like to be able to see like, okay, you know, I know that I need to have this much in savings before I start investing. is really important. And I'll also say that like done is better than perfect. It's much better to throw $50 a month in a Roth IRA than wait until you have an extra $6,000 a year to max it out. If I could change one thing about how I handled my early 20s, I was such a perfectionist that I was like, I'm not going to open this up until I can put $20,000 in it a year, or, whatever. All of that compound interest I lost out on. It kills me to this day. So I would always say like, it's so much better to start small than not start at all.
Start small instead of not starting at all. Ready.
Man, I didn't even mean to rhyme, but that's quippy.
Okay,
Let's tweet that one.
Do you have an app or method to track finances and budgeting? What do you like to do?
Yes. So I am currently testing out a lot of apps before giving one like my full recommendation. I am currently testing the Copilot app, which I really like. My friend Katie Gaddy, who runs a personal finance blog called Money with Katie, recommended it to me, and I am really liking it. I am very much a nerd. Like, I use an Excel sheet. That's not practical for most people.
That's what
we use. Even in the real estate world, we tried all the fancy things because there's so many fancy things, and at the end of the day, the good old spreadsheet is the most reliable. And I saw on your Instagram, like, how you use it to make the circle chart, breaking down everything. I mean, it really
it does everything.
What you need.
I'm glad we asked the question, because I think I've tried to use Mint before or other financial apps. And I've even
I know YNAB's also a really popular one.
Even like Mile IQ to record my mileage for work. Apps don't work for me. I don't like the functionality. I have a little tiny notebook in my car. When I get in to go to work, I write down the number. And then at the beginning of the year, I write down my mileage. And the end of the year, I write down my mileage. And it takes me 10 minutes to add all that up at the end of the year. And it just works better for my brain. When the app kept alerting me, I was getting in and out of my car and asking me if it was for work. I was so annoyed. I was like, I cannot do this. This is not going to work for me. But
you were like, I'm just trying to go to Cane's to get my sweet tea, okay?
Just leave me alone, app. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not at work right now, okay? I'm not. But the spreadsheet thing, I think that's all I do for my budget. I have a business page. I have a personal page. I open it up towards the end of every month. I make sure if my bills have changed in any way, I put the little new number in the cell, and then I freaking print it up, and I cross it off as I pay it. Like, y'all, people make this stuff way too complicated. If that app doesn't work for you, don't use an app. Use a piece of paper. You have to track it. And I think everyone just dumps it and is like, I'm not going to do it at all. I don't know what's in my bank account. I have no clue what's happening. I just don't think that's a method either.
Mm-mm.
Right, absolutely. And I always tell people, the best system is a system that works for you. There is something, that serotonin hit of that pen and paper is so real. And I have been building an Excel sheet right now for small business owners. And I'm actually working on one that's just for real estate agents that will calculate your commission. It'll calculate your taxes. It'll calculate what I think you should be saving. So I'm working on that. I hope to have that done pretty soon. And then I will definitely send that over to you guys so you can test it out for me and tell me what you think.
Perfect.
I love it. Okay. Here's a good separate random question. How can you avoid making purchases? Because you're great at budgeting. It's super, super great. How can you avoid making purchases just because everyone else is doing it? Business owners oh, you need that app, or oh, you need that software, or, oh, you need that device, or whatever it is. How can you avoid buying all the things that everyone else is buying?
Okay, so the biggest thing I'll say is that it's really important to have your own goals. Getting clear on your own goals will help you fall prey to someone else's, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I love to think about what's my return on investment going to be in this. So if people, my mind is currently flooded with things that I know that people in our industry are purchasing that are useless. And I really don't want to call any specific thing out, but I will say that every time you see someone buy, you know what, I'll use this as an example. I see so many real estate agents buy super fancy cars and say they need the fancy car because they want to impress their clients because they're driving their clients around. You don't need a fancy car. You need a clean car. You need a reliable car. You don't need a junker. You need a nicer car, but you don't need an Audi. You know how many real estate agents I know that own Audis?
Yeah.
So many.
We've talked about this on the show before because neither of us drive a flashy car and actually are uncomfortable with the idea of driving a flashy car. And it's so ridiculous because new agents do, or when they feel like imposter syndrome, like, well, I need a nicer car because that will make people think I know what I'm doing. And that's just not true at all. So that's a great point.
And I'll also say on the car thing, because I am passionate about this. When I see a real estate agent get an Audi, I think, why, like, they're spending their money unwisely. So why would I want them to spend my money?
That's a great point.
That is really good.
That is a great point. Okay.
Something to think about as a layman, as a non-agent.
I will
that
tell
is my
a quick story
opinion. And I also think
okay, well, I had a client show up.
I was going to say,
Sarah, you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go. So I also want to say that, again, like you said, I think it's a confidence issue. Like, the more confident you can be in how you're running your business, the less you're going to want to keep up with other people because you're confident in your own space. So again, that's all.
Okay.
Please tell me your car
I pulled
story.
up to a showing in my Honda Pilot. Young couple, but they were first-time buyers, and they had a really high, at the time, budget for first-time buyers. They were spending $300,000. I was like, wow. I mean, they both had great jobs. They were obviously savers. They were really prepared to put 20% down on this house. And I roll up in my, old Honda Pilot, and he actually made a comment after the showing. He was like, you're not the first agent we met with, but we really like your car, and you seem like you're more our speed. Because the other agent rolled up in like a Mercedes and made them feel like, maybe like you feel like they weren't spending their money wisely. How are they going to handle my money?
I do want to do my little disclaimer
100%.
that if you make a lot of money and you're wise with money and you just like luxury cars, you get that luxury car.
Right, if that's what you want.
If that's what you want and you can afford it and you have it in your budget to have that, go for it.
And you have fully funded your IRA
and you
already.
Have fully funded
Absolutely.
Your IRA and you have made wise decisions, go for it. It's funny. I heard Dave Ramsey one time tell a story about this.
Oh, makes me so mad.
I'm not a big fan either, but Alyssa is.
I like the principles.
Okay, well, tell me.
Principles. But the whole story was about like this guy who was a philanthropist, and he did have a really nice car. It was like $100,000. And everybody in the media just started like shredding him because he had this nice car. And they actually did the math on his business income versus his car. And they said him buying this car is like you and me buying a sausage biscuit from McDonald's. If he wants to buy this car, he can buy this car. And he can still do good things for the world.
Yes.
And I just like that analogy.
Absolutely.
Because
and
people, sometimes get in their head. But when I won the Baton Rouge 40 under 40, Mercedes gave each of us a Mercedes to drive for 30 days. And all we had to do was post about it on our social media. It was fun, but I pulled up to a showing and it was this young family with a baby, like budgeting for diapers, okay? And I get out of this Mercedes and like I just saw them and the first thing I said was, this is not my car. I won this car for a month. But this is not, I drive a Toyota. I just felt like, and they kind of laughed, but they were like, that's awesome. How cool is that? But I could just feel like I don't know if it made them feel inadequate or them feel like we're not on the same level, like I'm not relatable all of a sudden. So I think you just have to like know your audience, know your clients, like, rent the fun car when you go on vacation.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. And to be clear, like I love the sausage biscuit story because, I think my biggest issue with any kind of spending like this is, can you afford it? Like I always say, like girl boss or girl broke, like the amount of credit card debt I see in our industry is insane. And so again, if you are making $1 million a year and you want that Mercedes, I want you to go for it. But if you're making $100,000 a year, you do not belong in a Mercedes. That's all I'm going to say.
I do too. It's very helpful.
I caught all of my questions except for how much should I pay myself? So is there a rule? Is this something you need to really have your CPA tell you? Like, what are your thoughts?
Right. I hate answering a question with a question, but when people ask me how much money should I pay myself, I love to say, how much money do you need? Like, do you know what your bills are and what, maybe your fun expenditures should be, that kind of thing. And then I will also say it's definitely a great question for your CPA because there's different tax strategy involved with different personal finance goals. So if you're trying to save a ton of money for retirement right now, you're going to want to pay yourself a little less. But as you know, if you're trying to buy a house, you need to show that you're making more income. So maybe you'd be saving a little less for retirement for a couple years and, show that proof of income. So it is so personal to each person. I really wish you could say pay yourself a third, but what if 100% of what you make that month, you need to spend? Sometimes that's going to happen. So again, it is really personal. Wish there was a formula. Ask your CPA, DM me, give me your number.
I know this is also personal and you would have to answer it with a question likely. But I have trouble figuring out, if I wanted to retire at 40 or 50, how do you know what number to pick that you would be able to survive on? Do you just look at your...
Okay, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Okay, so yes, absolutely, have an enough number in mind. I need this much every month, every year. But then also think about bigger things. Think about your kids going to college. Think about paying for a kid's wedding. What do you want to take family vacations? What do you want that to look like? I would always say think big because I want you to be able to save conservatively. And then Alyssa, for you, I know your retirement plan includes a lot of real estate investments. So think about what's the cash flow going to be now, but also what do you think the cash flow is going to be in 10 years? Once you pay that mortgage off, right, you're going to get more money, but then property taxes are going to go up. So again, got to have an Excel sheet for this. And then, for the stock market, again, kind of throw it back to the FIRE movement, a very conservative rate of return is 4%. So a lot of people try to save $1 million in the stock market, and then they can conservatively take out $40,000 a year without hitting the principal.
That's interesting. That's very helpful.
So that 4% rule is something that's talked about a lot in the FIRE movement. And if you compare that with real estate investments, and let's say you make, $40,000 a year off your real estate investments, you got $80K a year. And, I think for most, again, it's a great amount to live on.
Yeah. And real estate typically appreciates at about a 4%, depending year to year. So, not the last few years, it's way higher,
market. But yes, exactly. Over time.
Yeah. So really you could get, and that's why I like when you say to diversify. If you're a realtor and you feel comfortable with real estate, then invest in real estate. You don't have to put some in the stock.
Absolutely.
Do both things or do one and then try to do that. You don't have to do it all, but I think over time you want to do a little bit of everything.
So remind me what your title is. Are you a financial advisor?
I'm not technically a financial advisor because I'm not a CFA, a certified financial advisor. So I like to call myself a financial educator because I think financial coach can feel a little skeezy. I have nothing against coaches, but I think sometimes I'm not a life coach because I'm literally going to take all of your money numbers and get something really tangible for you. So I like the term financial educator. I like the term financial advocate. I would probably need to go back, Alyssa, and get my MBA like you to become a certified financial advisor. Maybe one day I'll do that. But I will say that a lot of times financial advisors are connected to a certain bank or a certain fund. And, I've worked with a lot of people who have said you've been so much more helpful than my financial advisor because my financial advisor is only really certified to talk about certain things and they're going to get a kickback depending on what I choose.
Right. And you're looking at the whole picture. So where you might say, go buy a rental on property,
they will never tell you that. They're always going to tell you what's going to make them money. I'm not going to make any money off of what you decide to do. I'm going to try to give you the best options that I think work for your situation. So there is a pretty big difference. I don't work for Edward Jones.
So you evaluate people's income and money and give advice on what they should do.
A lot of people that come to me are coming to me, they've just started out freelancing, real estate agenting, businessing, and they need to figure out how much money do I need to make? How much money does my business need to make? And also they need to figure out things okay, I'd like to buy a house in 3 years. How do I do that? And I will help you figure out a plan to make that happen. So
I've been feeling the need to have some sort of financial advisor that manage, like right now I do, like you just said, I have a guy at my bank that I've been at forever that has handled my parents' accounts, and he just tells me what to do and I do it, and he's, you know, nice enough. I still don't always understand what we're doing, but it seems to be working out just fine on paper. You know, like my money is still there and it's growing, but I don't really know, you know, is there a person that does those things and then also manages your rental property income? Like who would that be? Like what is a CPA, a financial, like I don't know what is needed.
My perspective is that, like, unfortunately the only person who can manage all of your investments is yourself, and so being able to educate yourself and figure out exactly what needs to happen is important. And I'll also say that, you know, something that concerns me about a lot of financial advisors is not just the connection they have to the accounts and the funds that they're going to shill you, to be honest, but it's also the fee that they take every year. So I am very anti-fee. I'm very like, and it's something that when people work with me, yeah, of course, like they pay me, you know, a certain fee for like a deep dive or, you know, a personal finance plan or whatever, but you pay me one time. I'm not going to come back next year and be like, oh, did you make 30 grand on what I told you to do? Well, I get 3% of that now. So that's also something I think I would be aware of. I know so many people who have really been taken advantage of by financial advisors because they're salesmen, right? At the end of the day, it's like a car salesman, but for finance accounts.
So my last question, if you analyzed someone's finances and said, okay, you need to put 30,000 in the stock market, how would I know what to do if I didn't have my guy at the bank?
So I would be like, you know, we're going to put this in this kind of money market fund. These are the things that I think you should be investing in. You know, here's like an ETF, an index fund option, a high risk option, a low risk option. We would talk through all of that. And I'll say, like, I also manage all of my own stuff. And yeah, it can be scary sometimes, but I have learned so much that I'm now trying to educate other people on, because to be honest, like, you don't need an old white man at a bank to manage your money for you for a fee.
Do you have, as we conclude, do you have any like resources, podcasts, books, anything that you would recommend for like intro to starting to educate yourself?
Right. And tell us what you're doing, because you're going to be able to do this
for
us.
Absolutely. So you can find me at beckertalksmoney.com. I am currently blogging every week on different things that I think real estate agents and freelancers need to know. I'm on Instagram at beckertalksmoney. You can DM me anytime. I offer deep dives that kind of go through your whole financial plan. And I also offer like an hourly consulting, which is just literally an ask me anything. I'll send you a questionnaire before to make sure that like I'm very like well researched on what you want to chat about. But if you feel like you're kind of set up financially, but you still have a few questions, that's a great option for you. As far as further resources go, I mean, you know that I'm a nerd, you know, I'm a big reader. My biggest recommendation for financial reading is called Your Money or Your Life. It's an amazing book by Vicki Robin, and it's pretty short. It's very approachable. And I'm actually going to do a podcast kind of like, not really a Cliff's Notes version, but kind of like going through like my favorite points from the book. And that'll be coming out when my podcast launches pretty soon. So yeah, that's where I would start. And then again, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm there talking about money almost every day because it's my favorite thing to talk about.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're obviously very passionate about it, and we really need your help. So good for you for like taking on these sweet female dominated fields that need that information. They really, really do. So this is really huge. Okay. If you're good, I'm going to do a toast. Are you ready for a toast? Okay. I can't wait to hear it either, because I'm just going to read it off my email. Okay. This toast is from Rachel McBain. Okay, let's see. She wants to give a shout out to her division president mentor, Jennifer, Wadawa. Jennifer Wadawa. They're agents in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. Wait, Sarah, did you live in Chicago?
I have not. Unfortunately, It's an amazing city.
All right, but have you lived anywhere?
I love visiting.
It's a lovely city. Okay, carry on. All right. They used to work on the team together, but she had the courage to leave sooner than I did. When I realized it was time for me to go, she invited me out to lunch and introduced me to the most amazing brokerage anybody could honestly ever dream of. I was basically starting completely over once I went on my own, so Jen was always there to give me some tough love and encourage me to do what she clearly knew I was capable of. I always had a hard time speaking up and asking for help, but this past year I have tripled my income, and it's because she taught me to speak my mind and fight for what I deserve. She even turned me on to this podcast. Yay. Oh my gosh. So I am forever grateful for her and for you guys always making me feel like I don't go through the ups and downs of real estate alone.
Oh, that's really sweet.
God, Rachel, that was great. So cheers.
Rachel toasted Jennifer.
Cheers.
Cheers to Jennifer. That is amazing. Thank you to Sarah. Everybody go and follow Sarah on Instagram. And then we can't wait for your podcast to come out. So yay. That's going to be so much fun. We'll get to hear all of the really nitty gritty, like when you drill down deep onto this stuff on every episode of Becker Talk. Is it going to be Becker
Talks Money? Brand consistent. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Thank you,
Kate.
Sarah.
Thank you,
we
Alyssa.
appreciate
I love you guys. I appreciate y'all.
We love you too.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hustle Humbly podcast. Let us know who we should toast to for the next episode.
Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hustle Humbly Podcast. If you have an episode, topic, or question, please email us at hustlehumblypodcast@gmail.com.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. See you next week. Bye.
This is the good life.